Continue. I see from the Olam's Kashas, the Olam Mamash getting into the Sugya of Refuah with all the Nafkaminas and the Lomdas. It's very, very Gishmak. And there's a lot more to come, which is also Gavaldik. So we're going to try to go through Sif by Sif where we're holding. We started this week, Be'ez Hashem, Siyata Tishmaya, Sif Ches. I know the Marmakomis went all the way until Tazayin. But I don't think this week, I think the Olam, as far as I know, the Olam are holding by Yud, right? I think most of the Olam are holding by Yud, right? So it means next week, if the Olam could try to finish to Tez Zayin. So this could be a 2-week Marmakomis, and Be'ez Hashem next week, before Yom Tov, we'll have Shiur all the way till Tez Zayin, and Be'ez Hashem, we'll talk about Inyani Kabbalah Satorah as well. Hopefully next week at some point, we'll see if we do it separately or together, Be'ez Hashem. So let's go through them one by one. Sif Zayin specifically is... what the Gemara Avodah Zarah told us, Chof Chesam and Aleph, which is Makas, which is Makas Machmas Barzel, a person who's Machal Shabbos, which the Gemara told us is the Torah and the Rif, bring this down. Machekes HaPoskim, exactly what exactly is the cut. You saw a little bit in the Be'alacha, also brings Zazah Sofik as well, the Aruch HaShulchan, in Ois Chavav, says it's Dafka B'Koyach, and if you look at the Aruch HaShulchan yourself, you'll see how he learns Pshat in the Gemara. By the way, Gadlus, there are Chashul. I mean, every Sefer, every Achron is Kodesh HaKadoshim, but Marish Yeshiva, Reb Chaim Pinchas Sheinberg was very, very into the Aruch HaShulchan, because when you look at the Aruch HaShulchan, he starts from the Gemaras and goes all the way down to the Rishonim, Achronim, and Antar Halacha L'Maisa, and he was a Rav, which is why Reb Sheinberg, Zatzal, and Reb Moshe also paskin like the Aruch HaShulchan over a Mishnah Berurah, because they were both active Rabbanim. The Aruch HaShulchan was an active Rav, and therefore there's a certain Siyata D'Shmaya when a person is an active Rav. But if you want to marmokim for that, by the way, there's a Moedika Nitziv in Parshas Pinchas. The Nitziv in Parshas Pinchas talks about the idea of getting smicha, and he talks about like mechatis a person should get smicha. Like if you don't tell what do you get smicha for? So he talks about the idea when a person gets smicha, maybe it's not the olden day smicha, not necessarily our smicha, but whatever. The idea of smicha is it gives a person a certain siyata d'shmaya. And you have stories of Rabbanim that got shilas and like. I feel like this is not like it's not coming to you. I'm not getting this Siyat D'Shmaya. It's not really a shaila. I'm just asking you for your opinion. By the way, it's a very common thing nowadays. Right? Often I get shailas like, what's your opinion on this? So you're not looking for a psak. You're shopping around for different shitas and different opinions, and you're asking me, what's my opinion to put in the shopping cart? And whichever one comes out, easiest to your life, that's the one that you'll follow, right? And if they actually wanted to come up with this app one time, if anyone knows what that is, then where you could put in the shaila. And you choose the Rav that gives you the answer that you want. You keep pressing until you get the answer that you want. Oh, you found the answer you want, that's what it is. Unfortunately, we're living in a generation people are shopping around, which is, by the way, it's the first Gemara. Gemara in 3 places in Shas. Chacham shetim ein chaver yochel etar. You're not allowed to do that, but that's a different sugya. Not for now. But like upon him, I'm not sure how we go on to that. Anyway, the Aruch HaShulchan is a Gavaldik Sefer because he goes through everything. And by the way, if you know anything about the Aruch HaShulchan, he did not write the Sefer in the regular way of writing a Sefer. He wrote it in between. He was a dayan in the Beis Din, and in between every court case, he had a couple of minutes. So he Baal Peh wrote the entire sugya from the Gemaras with the Rishonim, Achronim, and everything in that. It's an unbelievable sefer. So the Chashulchan Amaisa writes in Chavav, it's only if it's done b'koyach. If it's not b'koyach, even if it's Shabbazel, doesn't make a difference whatsoever. And he learns, that's Pashtus in the Gemara, Ein Sham, how he learns it. If you look at Reb Chaim Noah on the Shulchan, Kuf Lamavav base, he's cholik and he says absolutely not, even if it's Benachas. You still should be Mechalel Shabbos in that case. So the question is, Lemaisa, by the way, this could be Negeah, Chas V'Shalom, Rahman Hassan. A child swallows a coin. Now, that's very, very dangerous. A child swallows a coin, forget about the germs and everything that could be on the coin, but stumbles with the bowels and everything over there, or Rahman Hassan, a needle, a safety pin. This pashas anyway will be a Makkah Shal Cholol anyway, which a person can pashas be Mechalel Shabbos, especially if it's a child anyway. What's that?
So a safety pin and knife, these kind of things, they don't have the rust that we're worried about.
Right, so it could be a Makkah Shel Cholol anyway. It will include in Makkah Shel Cholol. Now the only question is, Lamaisa, what do we say about nowadays? What's the chashash, and are we worried still about this or not? So even though it's true that there's a machlokes backwards and forwards, if it was done b'koyach, it was done b'nachas, the shaila is, what are we worried about? So Pasha is worried about the rust that's on it, right? The rust that's on it, even sometimes if you don't even see it sometimes, for sure if you do see it, then it can have a problem. And if a person had a tetanus injection, which generally we do give our children at some stage, so once they're already vaccinated to tetanus, so then what's the shaila? So Rav Shlomo Zalman talks about this in Shulchan Shlomo Sikot and Yud, and he says that if a person has the injection, he has the tetanus injection, he should Shayach Shlomo Zalman said it's kedai to go by foot. He wouldn't say call an ambulance, he wouldn't say, drive, but if you can go by foot, Shlomo Zalman would definitely suggest doing that. Rav Vosnan Shevet Halevi wants to tie that even though the Gemara says it's considered to be Pekuach Nefesh, once a person does have the tetanus injection, you do not have to worry, and as long as it's still in, it's still potent, it's still, I think they last for 10 years, whatever it is, sometimes 20 years, so therefore you don't have nothing to worry about in that case. Moving on to...
If you can walk too far, you should go back to Irish.
No. No, you wouldn't be able to do that, no. It also enough community of 24 hours or not 24 hours, because you kind of need to do it within 24 hours. So if it's in the middle of Shabbos, if you can wait, you can go to Shabbos, you can go by car, that wouldn't be a problem. Moving on to, I just want to give us some halachah l'maaseh, some hours on... Yeah, we need als tchum or als carrying eruv? Well, if you're not carrying anything, there's no problem if there's no eruv. Would you say to be over in the tchum? He doesn't write that. Maybe. There's a shalav d'rabbanon, so efshe, yeah. Yeah. Only if you can. Not alidei goy, not aderais alidei goy, not chalishim b'sakona. Saying it's kedai for a person to go by foot. That's what he said.
He's being matic bullish.
No. Why? You say, what do you need to say that for? Well, first of all, you're asking the goy to do things for you, because the most when you go into hospital, they're going to do things, right? They can give an injection, which alone is a shaila of a derabonon, it's a shvus, whatever. It could be as that he's being matter, but you could be right. He doesn't say it, but he could be right. He's talking about al trumim, that if it's actually worried about, then you can be makel. That's a good order. Now, moving on to this chamba yosa, this what the Shulchan Aruch talks about, this idea of. This heat. So this is stam akasha of what is the temperature that we have to be worried about, which I think is stam kedai to mention for the olam. What is the temperature that a person has to worry about pekuach nefesh? It may be enough gemina if it's a child or an adult, that's for sure. It also may be enough gemina, by the way, if the person has an illness. And if we know that they're sick, or they know that they're in some kind of sickness and they're getting high temperature, we know about it. We know what it is. We expect it. For example, if a child, a little baby has nappy rash, diaper rash, they sometimes have it together with high fever. It goes together. It's not like a sakana when a child gets fever if we know what it is. It's when you don't know what it is, that's when the problem is. So Moshe famously in Igros Moshe Chelik Aleph Kuf Chav Tes, he wants to say that 102 Fahrenheit is at least a sakana, at least a suffix sakana, That's where Moshe's Haggadah. The Tzitz Eliezer also, by the way, he asks a kasha on Rav Moshe, but Rav Moshe was very clear that 102 Fahrenheit is for sure, at minimum, a suffix sakana. Rav Vosna in Shevet Halevi Chelik Gimel Lamed Vav says 104 is at least a suffix sakana, which is Lamaisa the Psak of Rav Nissen Karelitz. And when I asked Rav Falk Zatzal, he told me the same mahalach as well. 104 is a suffix sakana. Remember, if it's an elderly person, if it's a child, and it's unexpected, there's definitely more of a mokim in that case. Let's move on now to Sif, where we're holding, Sif Tes. So Sif Tes...
Like what is machlokas, so because we've got different sakin, is that nichal and something cautious?
Yeah.
The fact that there's just a machlokas.
Correct. Before we move on, just interestingly enough, the Beis Yosef, when he brings the Orchos Chaim in Sif Ches about Ochsei Dam, that he says, you can take a pill because it's a sakona, right? That's what the Orchos Chaim tells us. You saw the Beis Yosef. So it comes out from the Orchos Chaim that there is obviously some kind of sakona. That he held that Ochsei Dam is considered to be a Chole Sheyesh Bei Sakona even, because that's what the Beis Yosef seems to bring him down. The problem is, from the Gemara that we learn, right, Shabbos Ton Gimel Amud Beis, where we learn that it's not a Chole Sheyesh Bei Sakona. What's the shaila? We have Nira Kameka, put him in the water, I think the Olam asked these kashas. So if you look at the Vilna Gaon in Za'oras, he wants to taina that when the Gemara is telling us that is when I know it's a meichash. But if I don't know it's a meichash, enachanami, that fits into what the Orchos Chaim tells us in the Beis Yosef, the Sif Ches, that will taka be a sakana. Now, moving on to Sif Tes, which is the Gemara in Avodah Zorah Chav Chesed Beis, which is talking about the eye. So Stamazoi, the Olam should know, even though you learned the Gemara, so obviously we don't need any rayas for what the Gemara says, but a Yid once told me that he suffered from a heart problem, and he went to have a simple test in an eye doctor. They went to check whether it was for glasses or anything else, whatever it was. And someday they put this machine on you, and the light goes in, and you have to look, whatever. He said he could feel his heart. he asked him to stop. He said he could feel something wrong with his heart. And he told me that then when he saw that Gemara, then again, not that we need a raya for the Gemara, but the Gemara tells us that, which means that yes, an eye issue is definitely something that we have to be more concerned than anything else, because it is connected to the heart. The Avnei Nezer has a wonderful tshuva in Yodei Simon Shin Chof, where the Avnei Nezer has a kasha in the following way. He wants to know that is it only a sakon in the eye and your person is machal Shabbos when it hurts? Or maybe not. Maybe if a person has one of the simonim that we've learned, even if it doesn't hurt, you have one of these simonim, boom, that's an automatic sakona, memela be machal Shabbos. That's the Avnei Nezer's kasha.
What's the Havana say it's only by pain? If we're saying that,
do you need something to show that it's more, you got the simonim, but the simonim alone is not enough. You need more something to show that there's a real sakona and a mele machal Shabbos. Masha'egin, if you just have a simon, okay, it's one of the simonim. It doesn't mean it's machal Shabbos. Again, here is the tut stadim. These is tut stadim. Is it the simon by itself, or do you need also something else to show us that this is taka sakona together with the simon? He brings the Gemara, and he's medaik from the Gemara that at the end of the day you need to have the pain also. You need the pain as well as the simon that Chazal tell us in order for a person to be machal Shabbos. And it's not only the Avnei Nezer, by the way. Refuah and Shevet Alevi Chelik Ches Simonai and Gimel also brings a raya, and he brings a raya from Kama Rishonim. One of them is the Rabbeinu Chananel that says if you only have the simon, it won't help you. You need a pain, you need something to be happening as well for a person to be machal Shabbos in that case. Otherwise, it will not help you in that case. And the question that some of the poskim will ask, well, if a person has a detached retina, what's the din? Is that considered to be sakonis eva? Or are we worried about more than that? So Rav Elyashiv and Rav Ozna and Rav Zil Orbach all held it's nichlal in sakonis eva, which sakonis eva is a sugya that we haven't got to, but Be'ez Hashem, we're going to get to that sugya coming up about whether or not you can or cannot machal Shabbos, and in what situation you're allowed to machal Shabbos. But one of the ikar sugyas that I really want to get to is sifyud, because after all, sifyud is something that's a very common shaila, because you often have Hatzalah members that come into a Hatzalah call on Shabbos and they argue about the Metzias, they argue about the severity of should they go, should they not go. Nah, you can wait till Motzei Shabbos, you can't wait till Motzei Shabbos. You have people who think they know, whatever it is. What din does that have when you have a machlokes between doctors, Ne'monis, Haroifa, Stamazoi? What din does that have? So really we have to learn the Sugya of Yom Kippurim, which we learn from the Gemara in Tofei Shut Ches. That's really the makor for all of these shailas, right? That's where it's all coming from. Now, if you look at the Shulchan Aruch in the beginning of Tofei Shut Ches, it says something interesting. It says over there, I haven't got a Shulchan Aruch here with me, but I'm just relying on my notes. It says that you have to ask, we're talking about obviously being Mechal Yom Kippur, feeding on Yom Kippur, whatever. You have to ask the Roifa that's Baki and Oiseh Moken. That means the doctor that's a baki in that place, that's who you have to ask. Paskin the Shulchan Aruch, legabe Hilchos Yom Kippur. And then you can machal Shabbos, then you can machal Yom Kippur. Now, where's the Shulchan Aruch coming from? The makor of the Shulchan Aruch is a Rambam. The Rambam says that by cholesh sheyesh bo sakana, avad you could do everything you need to do for him on Shabbos. Al pi lashon Rambam. Al pi roifa uman shel oiseh moken. That's the lashon of the Rambam, right? Which means it sounds like you need to have permission from the doctor in that place in order to be mechalal. Now, they bring down the many achronim and even some of the rishonim as well. They bring down that it's a massive kula. The Rambam was being very, very makel. Why? Because they want to taina that the Rambam was saying that even if the doctor over here is not such a uman, he's still in the middle of medical school. He hasn't got his diploma, he hasn't got his degree, he's not finished his medical school, the whole schedule. He hasn't finished yet, he's the middle, he knows. So he's not such a baki, but he's the baki in this area, he's the one that knows you could be Mechal Shabbos. That's what they want to tie in from the Rambam. Rabbi Yitzchak Zilberstein Shlita Lamaisa has a beautiful sefer called Shabbos Shabbosin. And in Omid Kuf Ayin Zayin, he brings a Tzafnas Paneach, the Rogat Shava, that understands the Rambam to actually be a Chumrah and not a Kula. And he wants to say like this. The Tzafnas Paneach wants to say that it has to be that the entire city or town, village, whatever it is, will makabel on themselves, this is going to be our das haroifim, this is going to be our doctor, and if not, you cannot be Mechal Shabbos. Meaning you're going to listen to him, what he says, l'chumra, l'kula, it's irrelevant. Rabbi Yitzchak Zilberstein, Lemais himself, based on that, says that's a huge kiddush, because it means that the Rambam sounds like, right, the Rambam sounds like a massive kula, because it sounds like even if the doctor has not finished as we said before, is not finished a doctor's school, he hasn't got a frame on the wall, whatever it is, but you can listen to him. But it's also going to be a chumrah as well. The chumrah is going to be, and that is that even if Lemaisa you do have a Refuah Neman, that means you have a doctor that's taka finished, he's experienced whatever it is, that it's going to come out that you're not going to listen to a doctor who hasn't yet finished medical school, because you're not going to listen to him because you've got a doctor that's a more professional. So Rabbi Zubashtin Lemaisa goes backwards and forwards to say this Rambam, which is brought down in Shulchan Aruch, can go both ways, either l'chumra or l'kula. What about a woman? What about relying on a woman? So you saw the Ramah. The Ramah says only Yisrael is considered to be a stam mumcha and not a goy. And the question is, what about a woman when it comes to Chilul Shabbos over here? That's what we saw in the Ramah. And then talks about the Ramah, which I'm not going to get to at this moment in time. But the question is, what about a woman? So Mishnah Berurah says that you don't need an actual baki, you don't need a mumcha. It has to be someone that's makir slightly. He recognizes something about this illness for a person to be machal in that case. The Shulchan Aruch Harav, the Balatanya in brackets brings down that even if it's a suffix, right, if this person needs a Chilul Shabbos or not, if someone's makir it slightly, that's going to be good enough. The Aruch HaShulchan, however, is chaylik. The Aruch HaShulchan in Tezayin wants to say, do not be soymach on stam a person if there is no doctor. So what's the chiddush? What's the chiddush? The chiddush is when there's someone being chaylik on a stam person, which means the Aruch HaShulchan learns pshat in the Shulchan Aruch and pshat in the Torah B'Yisrael of everyone else is anyone's considered to be a mumche ksas, and it's a suffix against a doctor that we don't necessarily have to listen to because someone's considered to be a suffix against him. As long as I have someone that's considered to be a little bit of a baki, he understands a little bit, he knows something of it, then he can be chaylik on something. But without that, it's not going to help you. And if you have someone that's not, yeah. And someone who's a non-from person, what do you do there? Because the Ramah told us a goy not, a yid yeah. The reason, by the way, for that, the item we're asking is because a yid understands Shabbos Kodesh, he's machshav Shabbos Kodesh. So if a yid says be machal Shabbos, it means he understands Shabbos and he still wants you to be machal Shabbos. Therefore, that's what a person should do. So at the end of the day, the question is what happens if you have a situation of someone who's not a religious Jew in that case? What would you say over there? At the end of the day, we generally would be listening to him in that case, even though there are those who say not, but especially if the Marmakomis that we have is eating on Yom Kippur. When it comes to eating, Rav Elyashiv said for sure you have to listen to him, because at the end of the day, when it comes to other things, efsha not, and that's what they want to tell you even from the Ramah, because the Ramah says a yid who understands Shabbos. So many of the poskim say, so in that case, if he doesn't understand Shabbos, doesn't appreciate Shabbos, not machshav Shabbos, it could be that you don't have to listen to a non-religious Jew who doesn't understand. If you have a machlokas between doctors, Hatzalah members, and everything else, we have a major machlokas rishonim. Let's just be masak in the machlokas rishonim. The Stam of the Olam saw this. The Ramban says if they're equal in number, shovim b'minyan, then you go after the bikiyim, both l'chumra and l'kula. If it's 1 against 2, even if one of them, says the Ramban, is a bigger expert and the other 2 are not, 2 of them automatically win, and the 1 expert means nothing. Why? The Ramban holds minyan wins. It goes by number. He even, unless he says the Ramban, one of them is a muflug badar, he's mamash huge bachi, is a muflug b'chachma, he understands what else, then in the Chanami, then we can be choishish for him to make it a suffix, but not l'chumra. That's the shittas Ramban. Again? Means in Refuah, yes. Means in Refuah. He's a big, huge surgeon. He knows better than everyone else. Then efshar we can. Masha'eged 2 Hatzalah members, not.
Also only that Refuah part?
What do you mean, as opposed to?
Not all the other Refuah parts?
Meaning if he's not a baki in this particular illness, he's baki in something else, then what? Then he's not a baki in this, then he doesn't understand the mechtas who believe him, no. But if he's tainas that from my knowledge of that, I know this, then yeah, then the Pashas we'd be calling Muflug B'Chochma. That's what the Rambam would probably say in that case, yeah. The Ran in Yuma Daf Dalet wants to say we always go after Bikiyim. Completely different to the Ramban. The Ran goes, we go Basa B'Kiyim, 1 against 2, and that's the Pshat and what the Gemara says, whatever it is. The Torah that you saw in Tofei Shutches, that we never go Basa B'Kiyim at all. If 2 people say that he needs to eat, again the Bakar of course is Yom Kippur, then we listen to them, even if there's 100 saying not their way, and even if they are Bikim in that case, because according to the Torah, we do not go by Bikim. At the end of the day, 2 is like 100, Sofik and Foshos Lahokal. The Rambam is a big machlokes how you learn the Rambam. If you look at the Maggid Mishnah, if you look at Daki Moshe, big shaila is how you learn the Rambam. What does the Rambam say? Lemaisa the Ramah, as you saw, goes with the Torah. The Magen Avram, however, Tofin Shitches, Dalet, and the Ali Rabbah both go with Shitas Ramban. They were equal in number. You go after the Baki. So that would, by the way, mean, according to that, if you have coming to your home, not your home, Chas v'Shalom, somebody's home, somebody comes in, Tzollah members, one of them happens to be a paramedic, so then it could be he's a bigger baki, depending on what he knows and the experience that he has, that according to the Ramah, if we go with the Torah that, we don't go with Bikiyim, so it could be a make enough kamina in that case, especially if the Magen Avram and the Eli Rabbah go with the Ramban, that the Ramban says we go basa Bikiyim if they are equal in number. Moving on, just one last sugya. Halach and Amaisa, we're going with the Magen Avram and the Eli Rabbah. That means if there's a poki that comes in, a Tzollah member says, listen, I know this, I've done this, I've researched this, whatever it is, I know this, even if it's against the number, we're going to go with him to make it a Sofin and Foshos, and then you can Machol Shabbos. Now, let's just tiny bit move on over here. There's a Mordecai Radvaz, which the Magen Avram brings in Tofei Shutches. That's Machadish, that if a Choyle says, I need to eat or take medication, and the Refuah says no, right? So it really depends what it is, right? The Radvaz is machalik if it's medicine or it is food. Achila, at the end of the day, if the doctor says he does not need it on Yom Kippur, so at the end of the day, since the choila is the one that knows about it, right? He understands himself, he says, I need food, the choila will automatically win over the doctor. However, when it comes to medication, however, the doctor is going to win over the choila. Now, there are 3 specific cases, and that is, what if the choila thinks, right, without good reason, he's got no reason, he thinks that the medication is going to help him, so unless he's going to go crazy from not taking it, you should not give him the medication. That's number 1. Number 2, if the choile says, I have such and such an illness, right, whatever it is, and that's why I want this medication, and the doctor says no, so then we will listen to the choile in that case.
The doctor says you don't have it, or he says you don't need it.
So if the doctor says it's going to mazik the choila, for example, then you would listen to him.
No,
but
the doctor says you don't have this illness that you think you
no.
have, or
Then we're going with the choila. We're going with the choila then. The choila says, I have that. Again, you have to know who we're dealing with, right? If he's going through some manic, whatever it is. Last night, I was on the phone for quite a while with a person who was admitted into a mental institution, into a psych ward, and we were having a machlokas with the doctors and the person in the psych ward whether or not he should take the medication or not. Right, and I had to speak to the doctors, and I sent a couple of rabbanim also to go and check out the situation, because he called me up and he says they're forcing me to take this medication. He's over 18, they can't force him actually, but they take medication or not take medication. So I said to him, I said, listen, what do you want me to do? I don't know what's going on. I'm 6,000 miles away from where you are. Like, I'm going to answer such a shayla if I don't know. So we called the doctors, we called whatever it was, and we found out the Metzias was that it came out that they were willing to wait another 24 hours, which is what we did. But otherwise, sometimes you have to force the person to take the medication if he doesn't want to take the care. I'm not talking about a psychological situation. It could be it could be a physical one also. But you have to know, if the choila says, I have this illness, even if the doctor says, no, you don't, well, you're going to listen to the choila and give him the medication. Yeah, at the end of the day, what are we dealing with over here? Right? He's in the hospital anyway, or he's at home, whatever it is, and they're offering to give him medication. We're not dealing with anything major. We're giving the medication, not giving the medication, so we can listen to him in that case. Yeah? If the doctor says there's a sakona to take the medication, then obviously we're going to rely for sure in that case. And the question is, if the choile says, I need to eat, and again, all makoros will come from Yom Kippur, we listen to him more than the doctor, that's really coming from the Ramban, as we mentioned earlier in that case. So let's just try to make a bit of a sikkum, because it can get complicated. we have a situation when you have a machlokes between two different doctors. If two doctors, and doctors does not mean doctors, it can also mean Hatzalah members or people that know, if they're arguing in that case, at the end of it there's equal, even if one of the doctors is not a frum doctor, it is irrelevant. We will be Machal Shabbos, we will take him on Shabbos to the hospital. If one doctor happens to be a muflug b'chachma, he's a big bucky in this particular illness, whatever it is, more than the other one, then we will listen to him l'chumra or l'kula. If there are two doctors, then the Maisa we're going to go basar. We're going to be Basar Roiv. Two doctors are Mekel, and one being Machmir will go Basar Roiv, and will be Mekel, which means that we will be Machal Shabbos. Even if one of them says you do not have to be Machal Shabbos, and the one that says that you don't have Machal Shabbos is a Muflak B'chachma, since there's two against him that say you do, we will go Basar the minion in that case. And if the Choyle himself,
It's going to be Mazin.
if the what?
What about it?
No, we're talking about not the medication, we're about taking him to hospital. Be Machal Shabbos. We will listen to the two who say Machal Shabbos, even against a Muflug B'chachma who says you don't need to.
What if two say that he needs it and one says that it's going to injure him? It's going
To go to the hospital?
Medicine, let's say medicine.
No. If it's the one who, and he knows what he's talking about?
I mean, they're all on the same level.
So they're all on the same level. One is saying he's going to be sakona, not just going to be mazig him, it's going to be a sakona for him, then you would listen to him and you would not give the medication in that case. Because we have a das to say it's a sakona in that case. And the Choyle himself says,
You've got a few regular people against the doctor.
so what does a regular person mean? The Mishnah says you don't have to be, but everyone's considered to be some kind of,
You mean that at the same level, or you can also be machriat to Michal Shabbos?
Yeah.
With a regular.
If he knows, no. Again, doctor, someone's a mufla
Regular
b'chachma.
people, whatever the mission, and then you've got one doctor says, so two regular people say they should Michal Shabbos, one doctor says no.
So you got basaminion then in that case.
What's the menu? See, we override.
If they're makib ksas, if they know something.
If they're makib
A Baruch in yeshiva, some know and some don't. We had a Maisa once in yeshiva, and Baruch Hashem, this was not with one of the boys. I heard about it. I was walking to Yom Kippur, Shachos Yom Kippur in the morning, and a boy came to meet me in the street, and he said, "I just want to tell you what went on." Because normally, obviously, they can contact me, Yom Kippur not. And there was a boy that came from a different yeshiva. I don't know if it was in yeshiva, whatever, from somewhere else. And he came upstairs to shmooze with the guys after davening, whatever. And he passed out. But he didn't just pass out. He literally looked like he was like he died. And we looked at the video cameras quite a few times afterwards to see what was happening. And no one really knew what to do. Like it was a shock. No one knew what to do. What happened in the end is we have a Tzolom member that happens with us Yom Kippur, whatever. So he lives in the area. So he came running in and he did something which is be'etzim illegal, which is something called Narcan, if you know what I'm talking about. So Narcan is something that you spits in the nose, whatever. And for someone that has an overdose, it wakes them up and they can be very violent. To be careful if you ever have to use it. By the way, I don't know if I should say. Okay, I'm not going to say it on camera, but whatever. It happened. Okay. And he used a couple of them, but before Mada came in, he disposed of the evidence because he would be put into prison for doing such a thing. Huh?
Why is it illegal?
It is illegal in this country. You're asking me why? I have no idea. Huh? No, I don't think so. I don't know. I don't know why it's illegal. It's completely illegal. And if Mada would have seen it, this Hatzalah member would have been put behind bars. It's crazy. See, this Hatzalah member, I think his father is Shver, is a big Hatzalah member in Borough Park or something. So because there he carries a few, so you get. In US, of course, they use it all over the place, big time. Yeah, much more available. So we have two in the building, whatever. But Baruch Hashem, it wasn't a boy in yeshiva, so whatever. But it saved his life, yeah, 100%. Yeah, it saved his life. No shaila, it saved his life. Unbelievable. And yet it's illegal.
Who not telling him who lives here, his father's the one who came with
the Hashgacha Pratis involved is unbelievable. Forget about the Hashgacha Pratis shaila that we can get from the whole thing. It's unbelievable, the Hashgacha Pratis. And also the fact that Mala didn't come at the same time as well, and he managed to dispose of it. I think he used 4. I think he had to use 4 on the guy, right? You were here? I think he used 4 on the guy. The guys. I can tell you one thing. For me, as someone who speaks before, by Ne'ilah, we managed to get a power speech in right before Ne'ilah. It was gavaldik, but unfortunately, it had to be done that way. But upon him, yes, you have to know what it means when the Shiur says makik sas. People know it, but there are people who understand about illnesses, whatever it may be. Okay, Rabbi Be'ez Hashem, next week we'll try to continue the sugya, and hopefully, B'siyat Hashemah, we'll talk in Yoni Kabbalas HaTorah Shkoyach.